Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Put Me In Coach, I'm Ready to Scale podcast. I am your host, Eugene Terk. On this show, we cut through the noise to bring you practical ideas, real world experiences, and actionable insights from business coaches and growth minded leaders who are in the trenches every day. We aren't just talking about big ideas. We're talking about execution and hopefully helping you master leadership, alignment, accountability, and strategy to successfully scale your business. As a reminder, each and every episode is brought to you by Align, the strategic planning and execution software designed to keep your team focused on what matters most. From KPI dashboards to daily huddles, Align helps you create clarity and drive consistent execution. As a listener of the podcast, you can get 10% off of your new subscription. Just head over to aligntoday.com to sign up for an introductory demo and be sure to use promo code podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. And now let's jump into today's conversation. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Put Me In Coach. I am ready to scale. I am your host, Eugene Terk. Hope everyone is doing well. Today, we have the great honor and pleasure of speaking to Zahir Ladhani. Zahir, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for joining me.
Good to see you, Eugene. Thank you.
Zahir, obviously, given your background and you and I have known each other, you are a scaling up coach, but I'd love to learn and have you share a little bit more about your journey of how you came into the coaching world, where you come from, and sort of the types of companies that you typically find yourself working with.
Sure. So this was a serendipitous move for me, Eugene. I started off with a degree in mathematics and accounting. And so back when I finished university, I was in Canada. I went to University of Waterloo and I started off accounting with Kellogg, the cereal company,
Mhm.
and then moved to AstraZeneca as a financial analyst controller type of a role based in Canada. After 5 years, I realized I didn't want to do accounting as much, and I wanted to. I had this dream. I had a dream. I wanted to be the president of the organization. And a good mentor of mine, Michael Hickey, who was the head of sales and marketing, said, "So here, for you to be a president of any corporate, especially in pharmaceuticals, you'll need to do marketing. But if for you to do marketing, you need to have to be in sales first." So I took my first major pivot was after 5 years as a senior member of the finance team at AstraZeneca in Canada. I took a pay cut and a dip into my salary and became a sales rep. And I went to pharmaceutical sales with physicians in Southern Ontario. Post that, I got my opportunity to come into marketing. I did marketing for anesthesia drugs in Canada, then moved to the United States. And the career moved towards being head of sales for a primary care sales force in the US of 2,300 people in Canada, in the US. And I reached an age where I knew I wasn't going to be the president of AstraZeneca US, of a $15 billion company, and I still had my dream. So I took the next pivot and went to a technology company, Connexa, and became a salesperson for their RPO division. So another move, amazing move that while being there, they were looking for a large company person, a senior executive to come in. And we did an acquisition called salary.com. And my dream was achieved of being a president of a company called salary.com. We moved to Boston. What was interesting through that journey, and I give you that history, is Vern Harnish was coaching Connexa at the time. And we were using the Rockefeller habits and we were using all the tools back in those days when the first book had come out from Vern, which was the Rockefeller Habits. And fast forward, Connexa got bought by IBM, joined IBM, had the handcuffs on. And then I was looking to do something different. And I was looking around and I also spoke to Vern and he said, "Look, so here, you've drunk the champagne. You've used this and you've seen the benefits of it. Become a coach." And so I moved to Atlanta with no contacts and stuff from Boston and started up my coaching practice about 10 years ago. And here we are with a partner, Sid Panjwani, based in Chicago. And we've had and have clients in valve manufacturing to film company to HVAC to We have an organization which is recruiting companies, software companies, and so we're industry agnostic, but having a fun time doing scaling up and helping companies grow even through the COVID times, and now as the times we are in this volatile world.
By the way,
Sorry
I
for the
really,
long answer,
no,
but
no,
that's
no.
where we are, and that's what the practice is.
It's wonderful. And I really love the phrase drink the champagne rather than drinking the Kool-Aid. I think that has a much more, lifestyles of the rich and famous kind of vibe to it.
There you
So
go.
Zahir, obviously you're a scaling up coach, and the scaling up framework, for those who are not familiar with it, is really about people, strategy, execution, and cash. And each of those pillars is really put on equal footing inside of the framework. If a founder came to you as part of your coaching engagement on day one and said, I can only focus on one of these right now, what would you tell them and why?
Um, Interesting question. We don't tell them to focus on one, but we get them to decide as we move through. So let me answer what we would do. In our as we onboard the client, we'll speak to all the leadership team members. We also do a DISC assessment on the leadership team members, and we will hold a 2-day workshop with the leadership team where we will come out of those 2 days with a gutted out 80% one-page strategic plan that is scaling up known for, which they'll have their core values, core purpose, but also a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, and the next quarter with accountabilities for each of those leaders in that room. Very quickly, at the end of those 2 days, we're able to identify which of those players are in it or not in it, and which ones are going to survive or not survive. And I don't mean it in a bad way that they're going to survive, but people and accountable people is what a leadership team needs. A leadership team needs people in the right places doing the right things right. And you can quickly know those right people after those 2 days. So, in a roundabout way, what my answer is most clients bring us in for saying, hey, we need help with our strategy. We've stalled. We will work on all 4 decisions together, but we'll quickly hone in is do we have the right people in the right places? And we'll start working that through. It's not a quick move. It's a slow move because you've got to get the organization moving towards that role.
Well, there is certainly a classic business argument that says, yes, get the right people on the bus first, doing the right things. But others might push back and say that without a clear strategy, even having great people in the organization, they would just be spinning their wheels if the strategy isn't really set in place. Where do you land on that as a counter argument?
I teach strategy for an MBA, for executive MBA program at Kennesaw State University. And I'm going to say something that as a strategy professor, I shouldn't be saying, but look, strategy is great as long as somebody can execute it. And if you don't have the right people to execute it, it's useless. There are ideas and strategies are dime a dozen unless you execute them. So that comes to your second point. Is it people or is it execution? And so what we look for is, yes, we're looking for people, and then we're also looking for, are we executing? We'll start mining the strategy, but I would wait to say, do we have the people and are we able to execute as we develop our strategy? Having an amazing strategy, there are so many great strategies. It's somebody who has to execute it, and can they execute it? And let me use a football analogy. A plan and a strategy is just as good as when the game starts. Once the game starts, you've got to adapt to the weather conditions, to the plays of the opponents, and to the grass, et cetera, et cetera. That's when people come in. That's when execution come in. So that's why I would say, yes, strategy. You have to have an amazing strategy, but you have to have the people or the execution behind it.
Well, let me let's talk about execution for a moment because some say that execution, like you just pointed out, is the great differentiator. because lots of companies can have great strategies and lots of people and lots of organizations can have the right people, but are they executing? And so, most companies, or at least some companies, probably fail not because they have a bad strategy, but because they can't execute that strategy. And I would ask, do you agree? And where does execution then fit in the priority stack of people and strategy? And we'll get to cash later.
Yeah. You're really putting me against the wall, but execute. And I think when my fellow coaches and Vern and others listen to this, are going to say, "Here, are you crazy?" But it's a great debate to have. For me, execution comes just with people, right? It's neck and neck, but the right people can execute and flip or can adjust and pivot, right? So that's why I still put people first. Execution's right after that, because uh, you need to have relentless repeatability. You need to have an organizational processes that run smoothly, that takes the growth that you get and you can run your organization without drama. If you don't have right execution, you're just struggling and everything is inertia or everything's very difficult to do. And so you need to have execution, which is running like a well-oiled machine to move forward, right? Which is
So,
very different than strategy, right? A strategy
and
is not operational efficiency. A strategies have a unique differentiating factors, but execution is operational efficiency.
do any of your answers change depending on the stage of the company, startup versus scaling up? Is there a different first thing based on sort of the maturity or the stage at which the company currently is at?
Very much so. We deal mainly with companies with 5 million in revenue and up to 150. Generally, that's our sweet spot. Um, at the 5 to 50, we're putting in the right people and getting the right execution on while we're mining the strategy. At 50 onwards, we better have the right people. Execution is there now. Its strategy is really differentiated, and we're making our big moves, right? And that's the way we would do it. And that's how we evolve there. But if we get into an organization that's at $50 million, we will first make sure we have the right people and we're able to execute as we develop the strategy. So we'll continue their strategy and start tweaking it before we make major moves on their strategy. Take the first couple of quarters to get the execution and people right.
I don't want to leave the fourth pillar out. Certainly, cash is often called the oxygen of a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
You can have the best people and a flawless strategy executing well, but if you run out of cash, it's over. And
Yeah.
so, does cash actually trump everything else, at least at certain stages?
It can, if it's very cash-strapped business, then it can. Then you've got a whole different set of problems, right? But what we normally see is people have decent cash. It's how they manage that cash to go forward. And so that they don't run around. Do they have the most optimal cash conversion cycle, right? Are they moving from the lead to cash in at the most optimal way? Are they optimizing that part? Are they working through with their vendors or with their clients in an optimal way? And are they really working on their pricing strategy in the right way? So it could trump if it's a cash-strapped business. But once it's not cash-strapped business, there are many ways an organization can work and develop and use cash as a strategy. So it wouldn't trump it. It would be something you need to keep an eye on. I wouldn't say, and I want to clarify myself, I wouldn't say it's the CFO keeps an eye on. It's the leadership keeps an eye on, but it's something that you can work through in parallel, but without trumping it.
Well, we certainly hear about companies that had all four pillars firing at once. They've got great people, clear strategy, flawless execution, healthy cash, and yet they still fail. What is the missing ingredient that sort of ties all four together for companies that truly get this right?
I think when what the key missing ingredient again would be, then if you've got the right people, right, the right execution strategy and cash, it's the leader. One of the biggest impediments of growth of an organization is the leadership. And is the leadership evolving and learning and moving along with their business? Or are they still trying to do things the way they used to do it? And that's the biggest impediment that we see when the four things are moving.
Well, if a CEO, well, by the way, the answer also could have been working with a coach. That's the also missing
That was the
ingredient
lead in
that
for
ties.
me.
But if a CEO is doing all four of these things and they
Yeah.
feel stuck,
Yeah.
from your experience, which of the four pillars do you find is most often the hidden culprit? And how do you diagnose it? So they feel like they're doing things well. They feel like they've optimized all four of the pillars, and yet
Yeah.
still something is not working. If
Yeah.
it's not just the hidden missing ingredient of the leader, what is oftentimes the hidden culprit? Is it really that the people they thought were the right people actually were not, or is it that their strategy was not differentiating enough or singularly focused, or was it just an issue of execution?
I think there could be any one of those things, and it's the blind spots that the CEO doesn't see because they're within it. And this is where a coach who's sitting on the sidelines, he's looking at the business, can see the plays being played out versus being on the ground in playing the game, right? Is what they can see. So it could be a myriad of things. It's not generally one or the other. It could be a myriad of things that you see. But there are some hidden things that start to pull up because they get stuck in the day to day versus having to stand out or step back, that they can't see the picture.
One final question, and I'll ask about because obviously, as somebody listening to this might think, "Oh my God, I really have to focus on all four of these pillars, or I need to pick one and really execute it." But is there a danger in obsessing over one pillar too long? Like, what happens to a company that gets really good at execution at the expense or at the neglect of people or strategy? Because you may be executing and you're selling widgets and you're providing services and you're generating revenue, but yet you're really not paying enough attention or spending enough time focusing on that strategy or the people side of things, or maybe the cash as well. But what is the danger of sort of obsessing over one for too long?
It's like any four-legged stool. If one leg gets really strong and the other three get weak, what happens to the stool?
Yeah.
Right? It gets out of kilter. So we work on all four at the same time with some emphasis on one or the other. It's like exercising your body, right? You're exercising certain muscles at different points at different days and have recuperation versus just one muscle being exercised all the time. And that would be the key. I would never recommend for a CEO to say, focus only on one thing. You've got to focus on four, and then you put emphasis on one or the other at a time. And my view would be initially you assess the people, and then your execution, then you get into the strategy, while cash is a bottom denominator that you look at.
Given the fact that there's 4 quarters in the year, there's four pillars of scaling up, would you recommend that a CEO or a leadership team sort of focus on one quarter, one pillar each quarter in a given year?
I've not done it that way. I've done bits of everything with emphasis on different things, and then sometimes you may need a couple of quarters on an area. And strategy, we've not talked too much about it. If I can, Eugene, strategy is like a goal. It's like mining, right? And when you mine, it takes a while to go find it. It's not something you can just do it very, very quickly. You've got to test it. And I hate to use this analogy, but uh, Jim Collins has this, that you take first couple of bullets before you start going after all your all your armamentarium that you have. You test it with a couple of bullets, right? Shoot with a couple of bullets, see if you hit the target, then you go all in. I hate that analogy, but I can't think of a better one, especially during these times. So my
Yeah.
apologies to the audience, but that's what we're trying to do in the strategy part, right? So you're starting to
Yeah.
test out a few things as you go forward.
Awesome. Well, this has been a wonderful sort of overview of the four pillars of scaling up. Let's end this by asking, so other than the Scaling Up book and Vern's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, is there a particular book that you encourage each and every CEO that you work with to read these days?
There is two. One is an article, which is an old article, which is a Harvard Business Review article by Peter Drucker, which was "What is Strategy?" Even though
Okay.
I'm talking about people, every CEO should read that, and we in fact ask some of our clients to read it regularly. Every year, reread this article, "What is Strategy?" In my course, when I teach, that's the seminal article that we work with because he talks about what is strategy. The second one is on people, and I really, really like the work of Patrick Lencioni around people and what he talks about, all of his fables that he has on people, be it the five dysfunction, be it the advantage, be it death by meetings. I really encourage CEOs to read that book or those books from Patrick Lencioni because it gives them some ways of looking at people.
In this podcast episode notes, we'll certainly include a link to that strategy article in HBR as well as to some of Pat's books. Zahir, I know the answer to this question, but interesting places that you've traveled to recently.
So, I love traveling in the world, and our daughter was fortunate enough. She's just finished freshman year at UC Berkeley and got an internship at University of Central Asia, which is headquartered out in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. So my wife and I took the opportunity to quote unquote drop her for that internship. And so we visited Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan in the last couple of weeks. And it was a phenomenal trip. It helped me understand people, helped me understand the cultures, and helped me understand some of the advancements that are happening there and in that part of the world and some of the history in that part of the world. We were fortunate enough to go on a high-speed train that was in Uzbekistan and going from one of the cities to the other cities, which was quite neat.
Awesome. And a very, very interesting part of the world. And finally, the question that I love to ask every business coach. So if you were to name a musical act or a band, dead or alive, that you have never seen in concert that you wish you could, who would that be?
Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Oh, all
And I'm
right.
waiting for them to come. I want to go.
If they are still on tour, then hopefully there's an opportunity that maybe they will come back to Atlanta sometime soon. That is not an act I've ever seen, but I'm sure they
You're
put
too
on a
young,
great show.
Eugene. You're too young to know who they are, but "Do a Little Dance" is a great song by Casey.
Of course. Zahir, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. For those of you who would like to learn more about Zahir, his coaching practice, you can go and visit his website at velocitystrategicconsulting.com. That is all one word. Again, velocitystrategicconsulting.com. We'll include a link to that in the episode notes as well, along with the article and the books that Zahir referenced earlier. Zahir, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.